Thank you, Madam Chairman. Minister of Works, want to start with you. And the question I'm going to ask is in relation to the Port Antonio bypass. So it would be found at 1900 C10. 19,000 C12 actually, because it speaks of Port Antonio bypass and it says 90% complete. The construction is 10% complete, and then land acquisition is 5% complete. The first question I'm going to ask is, there is a displacement of 313 housing structures, which averages about 6 persons in each. So not the best at math, but that's about 1,800 persons that will be affected or displaced. Now, the question I'm going to ask, following a consultation with the National Works Agency, which, if you are familiar with movies, the National Work Agency is acting as the Silver Surfer, almost like a destroyer of lives. And they're moving forward in completing the bypass. Just work with me. In relation to acquisition, which is a part of what you're doing. You're sitting beside the minister responsible for land and housings and the allocations thereof. Was there any contemplation in the budget for a consideration of a replacement value rather than market value?
But that is how the law states, that you contemplate two. You contemplate both values, and in many cases, the government, based on the humanitarian situation and other considerations, does pay out the replacement value in many cases.
Well, I'm happy that you clarified that, Minister, because what the people of Portland Eastern was told was that it is only market value, and market value is not the same as replacement value.
And I can echo, the Prime Minister did have a meeting with the National Works Agency, myself, and the consultants regarding this matter yesterday, and he was very clear and unequivocal in protecting the interests and the rights of the landowners and residents that will be impacted by the bypass. So they can be assured that their government has them front and center, and rather than being silver surfers, we are giants for their rights.
I'm happy you say, I'm very happy you say that. It need to be loud over there, you know, but I'm happy for that. My next question to you, however, is as a giant of defenders of rights, in relation to alternative living, as in alternative lands, and maybe you can pass the question to the Minister of Land, if in relation to the bypass and the magnitude of displacement, if within Port Antonio and Prospect, if persons will have alternative options to acquire land in that space.
Member, I am very, very happy you asked that question. because he knows more than most of us in this house. He knows the law. And he understands that, one, you cannot force persons, and two, if you are negotiating with people out of respect and out of legal obligation. And this government, as the minister said, will be the giant, and always will be the giant for people's rights. And we will protect those rights. And we will negotiate, because, remember, you understand that every person would have different circumstances, and it's not a one-size-fits-all. But within the boundaries of the law, we will work with the people, work with you as the representative of the people, to ensure that all stakeholders are adequately and properly dealt with.
Minister, I appreciate that beautiful response, but I'm making reference to whether lands such as lands in Ponciana Park, lands in Pasley Gardens, lands in Fairy Hill, lands in non-such will be made available for this type of displacement. Understanding the context that we already had experienced Melissa just last year. It's fresh in our minds. And there are persons who were homeless, which some have families, and as such, it is something that weighs heavily on their mind. So I just want to know that in your capacity, if that is an option on the table, and I will respond thereafter.
Remember, again, you understand that if we are purchasing, so you have to make up your mind. And please, I'm going to ask you to help to guide your constituents. Because if we are going to purchase outright, we cannot provide the alternative accommodation. So if we are going to provide the alternative accommodation, we can't purchase. So we have to make up our minds which one of the tracks we want to run on.
No, an alternative purchasing land and structure is completely different from providing land in the alternative after purchase. And this is in the context. Allow me. This is in the context. This is in the context that one, after consultation with the National Works Agency, it was clear that their mandate was just to build. NLA has not given any consultation as yet. As yet. But let me just say this. What is clear is that the principles of recreational holdings apply. I'm now speaking to you in relation to the law. That is where adverse possession is available, if it will be ease of access, because what this type of project has done is thrust persons into pre-litigation phases, negotiation phases that they don't have, not necessarily have the resources, and I'm not seeing anything in the budget, not even from legal aid, that would assist them with the magnitude. I'm talking 319 or 313 persons. So I just want to know if that is an option on the table for this development, this type of improvement to the road.
Now, remember, you know that a bypass like the one that we are contemplated, planned, and have begun, that kind of development will always displace people on one hand, and on the other hand, it will create huge opportunities for others. And therefore, we are open to your suggestions and your ideas and even your guidance. So I am happy you acknowledge that the National Land Agency have not yet begun their consultation. So you have opened the door, and we will hold it open for you to come in and to sit and let us have dialogue.
Minister, I'm so happy that you said that, because what happens...
Chair. Apologies that I have to be utilizing your mic, but just to not infringe on the other persons who've already pressed. We do understand that there are some questions that require expansion, and there are some matters that have underlying issues, but not all of those matters can be treated with here. There are some things that may require follow-up meetings, further discussions with the ministers, but if we are all to take a position that we're going to try to get to the bottom of all the items today in this process, then not just the ministers, that I know parliamentarians, we may be used to this, but bear in mind, we try our best to communicate a schedule. For example, for this ministry, we would have allotted 1 hour and a half, which we believe is more than adequate if people, one, stick to the budget, questions in relation to the budget, and not go over questions that have already been canvassed. No, I'm not saying you're doing that. Okay. I'm speaking in general. We are yeah, we are already, yeah, and what it means, what it means, members, What it means, just to put it in perspective, what it means is that the technical teams get here for the scheduled times, and then they are forced to wait. So I say all of this to say to the membership of the House, where we can be more concise, please do. If it requires further interrogation, please have that discussion outside of this forum. Thank you, members.
Very well, Minister. Now the question in relation to land acquisition, which is at 5%. You can appreciate that we are governed and guided by Section 15 of the Constitution. What is happening here? It would simply mean that the statements were made to the public. Allow me. But yes, statements were made, and what I'm doing, Minister, which is why I'm using this forum while you have the Minister of Works beside you, is to prevent unnecessary litigation in a constitutional space. And so I'm simply asking, you said you left the door open, and you can give me a response that is palatable so that we do not have to put this matter before the court, because we are guided by the law.
You know, member, I know that you are very competent when it comes down to litigation. And we have a framework that we have used in other areas, other communities. St. Thomas on the North Coast Highway, Long Hill, in terms of engaging community and engaging the representatives of the people. So we want to say, rest assured that the concerns of your people will never be ignored by this government.
Thank you very much for that. And then lastly, my last question to the Minister of Works, if I'm saying that right, NWA boss. The bypass is expected to run drains into outdated drainage system. So there's an anticipation of flooding if those drains aren't updated. I can speak of Port Antonio and Prospect. So specifically, so I just need to know if there's anything in the budget anticipating to correct that and upgrade those drainage. Otherwise, it will affect other properties, the town, and just certainly cause flooding in the long run.
So this is a matter that has been of concern to myself, the National Works Agency, and we have worked with the consultants. We have looked at the watershed area. They have made adjustments to the designs to ensure that no water runoff floods the town or damages property. That is something that we had a long discussion about yesterday, and the solutions were indeed shown to myself and the Prime Minister, and we are satisfied that the solutions will ensure that there is no flooding.
My final question to you, for emergency roads such as hospital roads or roads leading to the hospital, I know that those roads that aren't on Spark, if there's anything in the budget that would allow those roads to be attended to because of on a humanitarian basis.
Well, if it is a National Works Agency main road, then you can always engage me as the minister, and I will intervene.
Thank you very much.
Angela?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's yeah. But Damon gave up his mind for ISIS. So.
Thank you, Minister.
Yes,
Member
leader.
Crawford and then Member Bar. No?
The
Member
President.
Crawford, I'm on. There's one beside.
Hines and then Hines and then.
No, so it's not Hines first. So Member Crawford, then Member Russell, and then Member Hines, and
thank you.
Then Member Brownberg. In the sequence of your mic coming on, I saw your mic on for a while, but it's not coming on. So
Today, Minister's Day, okay? Minister, I want to start with a concern.
Senior or junior?
Wow. I have two. Education is tomorrow.
Member
gonna
Crawford, Member Crawford have 2 questions.
No, sister. Not many though, not many. But Northwest St. Catherine is affected by the highway. And the highway have very excellent drains that end in the communities. Who is responsible for the damage or for the appropriate drainage that should take the water coming from off the highways into these communities without equal level of drainage? Where is that in the budget? Yes, where is that in the budget?
Are you asking for, you need to ask me a specific question. I cannot speak in generality because we have many highways in Jamaica.
Well, the highway to Otrias, what's it called again? Oh, the Edward Siaga Highway.
The one that them see.
The Edward Siaga Highway.
The one that that one.
Is it the, what I'm trying to understand, is it the purview of the owners of the highway, or is it the purview of the government as it relates to those outlets of water into our communities?
So the operators of the highway are the ones who maintain the drainage. We have not been made aware of any adverse situations. If you have any, you could surely reach out to us.
Also, I'll have to write to you directly.
No, you can write to NROC. You can call me. I'm always available, as you know.
All right, so we're right. But so NROC is the duty of the areas within the community that the water lets off the highway. You're saying that is the duty of NROC to.
NROC is not the operator of the highway, you know.
So I'm still asking whose duty it is for those areas.
What I'm saying to you, member, is if you have a specific issue that you're noticing, just reach out to me and I'll reach out to NROC and we will address it as best as possible.
All right, no problem. Minister, there are some low areas in communities that depend on sinkholes and almost like water catchments. But throughout the budget, we saw gully cleaning and all of that, but we saw nothing for sinkhole maintenance and those lowlands like Linstead.
Yes.
Yes, a lot of sinkholes is in Linstead. And the soakaways. Yes.
That's what we call them, sinkhole.
The people up in Ty Dixon call it sinkhole. They need to understand of my lobby.
So, thank you very much, member. And I know that you reached out to me last year about some of your sinkholes.
Yes.
So, we can offer some technical assistance, but you would know that a large percentage of these features are the jurisdiction of the local authorities. But the NWA is always willing to examine them from a technical perspective and assist where we can.
Okay. All right, Minister. I want to go back to something you said following up on the member from Central Westmoreland. Am I correct that you said we have 27,000 kilometers of road?
26 to 27.
Right. And did we hear you say that approximately what % of those are in some state of disrepair?
But that's difficult to assess because a majority of those, a majority.
That's an estimate %.
A majority of the roads that are in Jamaica are not under the jurisdiction of the agency of which I oversee. A majority of them are under the jurisdiction of the municipal corporation.
With
And other agencies and private roads and so on. So I would not be able to tell you the state of disrepair for a majority of the roads which are not ours.
No, but Minister, you do have a program called Spark that is seeking to deal with all roads.
No.
Not just yours.
No. We have a program called Spark that is dealing with roads that were recommended in consultation, 10 per constituency, where members of parliament, opposition persons, councillors, civil society groups sat down in a room with the residents and they made recommendations, and those are the roads, not all roads.
Okay, is that they reserved to a particular type of road, those recommendations,
So they were for parochial roads.
which is parish council roads?
That is correct.
So therefore, I'm still asking, because you have a program that is to encapsulate both parish council and NWA roads, for which you have indicated that you're fixing both. Do you have any idea of the percentage that is in disrepair? Any
No, I
concept?
don't.
All right. Did you indicate, therefore, that you thought that the 250 kilometers was incorrect and your correction was 12,000 or 1,200?
1,200.
Minister, when you made that response, I thought it is something that you should just take a look back at the numbers. The percentage looks like something maybe off with it when you divide that by the 26,000. And I think we should leave that.
You're asking my,
No,
I don't
no, I
understand.
think we
You're
should,
in the maths
because
class.
it's the
are you?
second
What's
time
going-
I've had the concern. Yeah, second time
Madam
I've had the
Chairperson,
concern.
the
So-
26 cannot be divided into the 12.
No, no.
The 1,200
you
was
said
the
26,000
630.
in total the first time, in the first session, and then went to 1,200 with the correction and the division.
I
seemed a
suspect
little off.
we will review it.
So I think we should go back to that afterwards, yeah.
So, Madam Speaker, I'm not sure if you're offering the answer, but okay. So we're confirmed that we have 27,000 kilometers of roads. Current conversation is that the Spark program is targeting 1,200
No. 630 municipal roads.
kilometers.
630 individual municipal roads. 63 main roads. Cumulatively 1,200 kilometers of road.
I think we're on the same page. So you are targeting to improve 1,200 kilometers of road.
Under the Spark program.
Yes, under the Spark program. So do you recognize that that is a 4% of the total roads that you have identified?
Yes, if your assumption is that the only program repairing roads in Jamaica is Spark, which would be a gross inaccuracy.
Would you agree, Minister, that the Spark is the dominant investment as it relates to road infrastructure over the next 3 years?
No. We're spending more on capital projects cumulatively than on Spark.
But is Spark the dominant program?
It cannot be the dominant. When we're
All right.
spending more on capital projects, we're fixing Outerwind Drive, we're fixing Hellshire, we're fixing Grange Lane, we're fixing Mobay Perimeter Road, we're fixing Brayton, we're fixing Long Hill, Barnett Street, and there are also other programs under the National Works Agency, routine maintenance, where we're fixing roads. So Spark is not the dominant program. As a matter of fact, if you add up all the money that we're spending on roads in Jamaica, it's more than what we're spending with Spark.
Okay, all right, I'll accept that. Minister, you indicated that the contract was signed in 2004. Work started in March 2025.
2024.
2024, and work started in March 2025. The first 2 years you indicated, Minister, was for actual works, and the final year, the third year, was to ensure that the work was completed in appropriate manner.
That's
Am
not
I
what
correct?
I said.
Can
That's
you
not what
remind
I
us?
said.
Mm-hmm.
The first 2 years will be where work is done. The third year is a defects liability period. But based on the contract, I will add to you that works can happen in the defects liability period as well.
Okay, so
But
works.
it's a 2-year contract.
Okay. Is there any obligation to the government if we miss that period?
If who misses that period?
If we are incapable to fund the completion of those works in that
The
period?
government